Dead Scared Entertainment takes pleasure in presenting Verda Darano, a journey into the phantasmagoric lands of folklore, literature, theater, and film. In the centuries-old tradition of the Romani people, we bring to you stories of superstition, fantasy, and adventure. There's no turning back. The Verda approaches.
Latchi Ratyi Miro Amal. Good evening, friend. I'm not Esma Kallai. I know you're expecting her, and she leaves me with a message from beyond the fathoms of comprehension. Esma writes, "Time truly flies when you're in between realms, as I have been. What does a ghoul have to do to get some rest and relaxation? I'm in between stops on my way to a galaxy light years from here, and I have to run and grab a couple extra oxygen tanks and laser pistols. You never know what can happen among the stars. I hate to leave you on such short notice, but time is of the essence, and I haven't enough time to sit and smell the coffee. Speaking of which, you should grab yourself a cup, and even a little cake too, and sit down for tonight's encounter. I'll leave you in very capable hands. He has a lot to catch you up on."
Latchi Ratyi or Verda Darano fans. My God, it's been so long since we last spent some time together. We can't do this no more. That's not right. By rights, this is no good. But don't worry. We're going to make up for some lost time, and we'll catch you up in this case. Or rather, I'll be catching you up. As Raquel is not joining us on this episode, more details on that later on. But for the meantime, you get to enjoy a wonderful little session with your favorite host, Piers Horvath. Wonderful. So, in this case, if you're listening to this in your car, enjoy the traffic. Both hands on the wheel. Make sure you're paying attention and just let your ears do the listening. If you're sitting at home, working on some homework, or just maybe fixing a loose screw in the hinges of your door, whatever that may be, go ahead and take some time to just listen and relax with me. Or if you really have nothing else to do, I invite you to grab some coffee, a little piece of cake, a little pie, a little pastry, a little this, a little that, or something. Come sit with me, have some cake and coffee, and let's see what we've been up to. But I'll be going first. Since we last spoke with Florian Tokorian, and our last conversation was just talking about his background, his life, what he's doing now, what he's been up to, where his sights are set on, especially in the world of acting, in the world of activism. And since then, he's been posting some amazing content about the Romani culture and just about the media and the Romani representation within that, as well as some other very pressing topics that are affecting the world today. So again, Dead Scared Entertainment and Verda Darano has been so absolutely grateful to call Florian a friend because, again, the conversation was a lot of fun. And speaking of which, the conversation and the fun with Florian did not end there. More on that later. But that goes all the way back to February. We got March, April, May, and now the end of June we're at this point. to catch up. And a lot's happened since then, especially in my world. To kind of sum things up, in this case, Raquel has been living in the world of fashion for the longest. Since even back in February, she's really been living in the world of fashion. For those of you who keep tabs on her, her work is basically just been in the world of modeling at this point, and she's been gaining traction in that realm. So a lot of Dead Scare Entertainment has been falling in the hands of yours truly, and such is life. But she's still involved, and more on that later as well. And I will be touching base on what she's been up to as of recent, further on into the episode. So I'm leaving you with a bunch of cliffhangers. My gosh, but that's a part of the story. So make sure you have enough to munch on and sip on while we talk about these things. So February was cold, but at least we had the episode. So let's move into March. Now, to give you a little bit of an insight onto what's been really pressing on my plate since honestly the beginning of the year, is the fact that I have been in an art director role on an animated adult comedy. It is a pilot that I am working with an amazing crew through Colonel Productions. And the working title for this is War for Christmas. Yes, I said War for Christmas. Could you believe that? The Master of Darkness that is speaking presently with you, the person who lives Halloween every single day, has been art directing, and animating, and supervising the music for a Christmas production. Isn't Del Loro funny? But, I mean, hey, you go where the money goes, and I am working with some wonderfully close friends of mine, and I have made some amazing friends and developed relationships with so many talented individuals here in Chicago as well as around the country. It is so cool how, even though we aren't all centralized, somehow we're all able to come together and create an amazing story that I am so positive when we are finished will definitely be seen on your screens sooner than you think. To give you a sense of what that looks like for me and what art directing has been, it's been a lot of drawing, a lot of creating locations, a lot of creating props. It's also been a lot of understanding character design. I'm working with a co-director, Stephen Deming, who is the animation director, and he was doing a lot of the design work prior to my being hired onto the production. And it's just been a great example of teamwork. And coming at this as a brand new art director in this case, it was a little daunting at first, especially now, the months of like February, January for sure, just jumping into this role. And then come March, we started to really begin exploring animation, hired the team, and I am a key animator at this moment. I'm not going to give you too many details about the plot and what I'm up to, but I will just let you all know that naturally I was casted as more or less the supervising animator for our narrative's villain, which is sort of a little bit of a silver lining, because I get to draw a lot of crazy, maniacal looking expressions. But yeah, working in both 2D and 3D, which is a new frontier for me. I like to call it 2.5D. But again, designing backgrounds, refining character designs, designing props, understanding the lighting, the coloring, just basically what elements build the world at this point is my job. And I have an amazing crew that all take my high concepts, run with it, and make my little sketches that much more beautiful and that much more amazing to look at. And I just can't wait to get this out to the public. In the midst of that, a very huge project. Again, can't speak too much on it, but I was a part of Better Luck Than Chuck from Scotch Worthy Productions. So through friends from War for Christmas, I was brought in touch with Tony Wash and his wife, Meredith, two amazing individuals, relentlessly bright and sharp and kind, but just huge imaginations and just diligent and resilient individuals. I cannot honestly, I can't compliment them enough. Better Luck Than Chuck is the world's first horror trivia game show. That's right, and it's so crazy that it was made here. You would think this would be something that would be made in LA. No, this was made here in Chicago. And it's just crazy. I got hired on for two roles, as an illustrator or a graphic artist, as well as a production assistant. The shoot was a few days, like it was a 4-day shoot, just being on this set. If you look at their Instagram page, Better Luck Than Chuck's Instagram page, you can definitely get the vibe. It's very much mid-century modern with a mixture of like that creepy sort of look. It's an amazing blend of horror and like classic, like kitschy 60s, 70s game show look. And there's a lot of flavor of the 80s in it as well. So yeah, 60s, 70s, 80s game show meets horror. The principal actors that we were working with were so talented, unbelievably talented. And the contestants that we had on the show were so bright. I thought I knew a lot about horror. My God, they completely put me to shame. I'll tell you that right now. They put me to shame. And the game was just so much fun to watch unfold. Again, I wish I could give you details, but all I can tell you is I worked on the set and I also produced some artwork for it. Can't even tell you what type of artwork I did outside of the advertisements that are on the social media posts. And for those of you who are looking to work as a production assistant or work on set, here's some tips I can give you. Number one tip, always have water on you. Always have water bottles for the crew. Always have a Sharpie on you. Always have a highlighter on you. Some type of like multi-tool. Now, because of my interest in art and sort of like the art department, I was also placed within the realm of the art department as well. So I also was bringing tools like, I was bringing like scissors. I was also, just in case, I brought duct tape. Just little things. Yeah, definitely having duct tape, it was a huge help as well. A hand sanitizer, because you don't get a chance to like wash your hands as much. And you're constantly, maybe handling food, like you're helping Crafty out. So those are important things to consider as well. We even had a visit from Moses of the Horror House here in Chicago. He came by to visit the set and drop off some goods for the contestants. And it was so much fun to see him. I remember I was just coming back from moving some stuff and I just walked through the door and I'm like, Moses, what are you doing? It was just one of those exciting moments. It was good to see a familiar fiend. One thing I also realized from that production is the horror scene in Chicago is so much a family. It's so tiny. Even if you may not know an individual, you know somebody who that individual knows. Just being on that set, being able to help dress the sets, being there to help prep scripts. And I'm talking big picture stuff only because I really just want to more or less give you a general picture of how things are. Just being literally an assistant. It sounds more daunting than it really is. It's more about being flexible, diligent, proactive. So trying to think a couple steps ahead. And it's just a matter of just kind of rolling with it, because you can be doing the same things as in another role, cleaning things up, grabbing things for your superiors, whatever, like you can be doing these things for other places, but the difference is you're doing it to help make a film or make a show, which is amazing. And the fact is you get to meet people that all are there to create an amazing experience for the sake of entertainment. And that's just such a huge payoff. And I am so unbelievably grateful and honored to be a part of the crew for Better Luck Than Chuck. And that was just like a few days in March. I can't wait for that to come out, to be honest. More info coming on about that soon. So let's move on to April. Well, the biggest thing that happened in April was the International Roma Day celebration that now, and I hope to say that this is something that happens annually from this point here in the city. We had the Romani flag raising again this year. And it just so happened that this year, the International Roma Day also fell on the major eclipse that happened around the world. So while we were all out there celebrating our heritage, people were outside of the buildings looking up at the sky waiting for the eclipse to happen. A lot of Roma surprisingly were even afraid of the event. Some of them were thinking it had like a lot of biblical meaning and that it wasn't safe or smart to come out, let alone a lot of Roma really considered it wasn't smart to be there just in case of, honestly, like racial issues or potential of anything dangerous happening to the Roma, God forbid an attack. That was something that was mentioned as well. So not too many Roma showed up, but it was still a beautiful celebration because, surprise, surprise, Florian was in town. So for about a day or so before the flag raising, Florian and I had a chance to hang out, get to know each other, grab some deep dish, because I mean, when you're in Chicago, what are you going to do? He, Raquel, and I hung out. We even grabbed a hot dog at the Wiener Circle. These are all Chicago staples, mind you. We had deep dish at Lou Malnati's, because if you're having deep dish at Giordano's, what are you doing with your life? But yeah, we had a great time talking about our acting experiences, the things we like, the things we don't like, cracking some jokes about the Roma, and just like really connecting over culture, over our love of the performing arts and just like art in general, and just really getting to know each other. It was a lot of fun. And then during the flag raising at the Daily Center on the 8th, Florian gave a wonderful speech just talking about the future of the Romani people and how we need to come together and really show pride in our heritage, because it's no more we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to be hiding who we are anymore. It's a different age. And especially with social media, there's a chance for us to show pride and to showcase our culture and to bring about the positivities that the Romani culture have, and to teach new generations the traditions and the ways that make Roma stronger and make the culture stronger, rather than perpetuating the negative things that the Roma just believe in and continue to do, which perpetuates all the ignorance that we see the rest of the world kind of, reflecting at us. But that was so much fun that day, and just, it was a really heartwarming day. The eclipse itself was actually pretty cool, because mind you, there were like people stopping on the streets in downtown Chicago, and just everybody was looking up, and I got a chance to see a glimpse of the majority of the sun covered by the moon. Not the full eclipse, but it did get dark for a few minutes. It got rather dark for a few minutes. I wasn't able to see that total eclipse. I was indoors at the time. I wasn't able to go outside. And then later on in that month of April, a first happened for Dead Scare Entertainment as well. A first for myself and for Dead Scare Entertainment. We had one of my films featured in a film festival. The film was Close Your Eyes, which stars Dakota Horvat as Detective Benny, Peyton Lacey as Mrs. Hoffman, and my sister as our main role, Laura. That was my sophomore year of college film. I made a film each year of my college experience. It was a spoof and a twist on the Telltale Heart that takes place with a very timid and squeamish nurse and her rich patient, who happened to have the most disgusting eye you could imagine. And it it was so cool getting to see this like on a screen. This was screened actually on Lake Michigan, like right by the shore. It was a very intimate film festival featuring films from here in Chicago as well as from Milwaukee, Wisconsin filmmakers. Super cool. A lot of friendly faces there as well. People that I've gotten to know through Pink Moose Productions. They're great friends of mine. I love them very much. And the work that they create is unbelievable. I was actually the storyboard artist and makeup artist on the set of their Batman Harvest Moon film. So we go back a ways, which is super fun to know that, I was able to kind of experience not only just seeing the amazing work that their friends and they've created, but also getting a chance to showcase my work and to gross out the audience as well, which was really cool to hear from the people that were present saying, yeah, it was one of the cooler animated short films. And it was great to see like the grossness of the animation. So if you'd like to check that out, that is available on my Vimeo account, but I will try to link that somewhere on my social so you can watch the whole film and experience it for yourself. There wasn't too much to report for May. May was pretty much, again, because I was in the thick of animation, I was very much glued to this desk. But some interesting things did happen in May. In fact, the Chicago Horror Film Festival happened. It was so cool to see so many different films from not only just here in like local Chicago filmmakers, but filmmakers within like the Midwest, within the country, and honestly, even around the world. We had like some directors fly in from London. I think we had a director fly in from France as well. And the stories that were being told were so much fun. The monster makeup in some of these films were unbelievable. The gore was gorgeous. Oh my God. Some people, I must say, the things that people can do with fake blood and with some like latex prosthetics and scar wax. Ugh, beautiful, beautiful things, I gotta say. It was just very interesting to see the spectrum of the types of horror movies because you had like classic slasher films. I was able to actually catch one of the Jason Friday the 13th fan films that was created that actually featured Adam Michaels, which was Chuck in Better Luck Than Chuck. He made a cameo, him and his wife, to like be walking into the theater, and just so happens as I was able to catch like in the midst of the film, I'm like, oh hey, it's Adam. I was working with him, not too long ago. A lot of the films were very psychological. A lot of them had to deal with, surprisingly, a lot of them had to deal with pregnancy, had to deal with the effects of what goes through a woman's mind before having the child, after having the child. Some great ghost stories as well. And it was just a lot of fun to watch. So if you're in the Chicago area during the Chicago Horror Film Festival, I highly recommend it. The tickets were super cheap and they literally paid for themselves over 1,000 times. I was able to see the one film that I was there for was called Have a Good Day by Lisa Soper. She was the director for this film, and features Lucy Davis, who is Aunt Hilda in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix. And Lisa was the art director on that show, and she since then has dived into the realms of directing, and she directed this short film featuring her. And the story centers around a horror author who is kind of going through writer's block and just can't find the right monster, the right villain to land on for her next big project. And it's very much a horror comedy that I highly suggest if you get a chance to see. definitely look up Have a Good Day online and see if there's anywhere it may be screening near you, or if potentially at some point, maybe in the future when you're listening to this, it may be available online for viewing. Definitely watch it. It's so much fun. It was the crown jewel of the experience at the Horror Film Festival. And honestly, since then, it has been a pleasure to know that, that film and going to see that film has opened a lot of doors to me, for me actually, within the realms of horror and the connections that I've been fostering since then.
I think this is a good part of the show. We should take a moment to pause and tell the people to go to our store, right?
I think, yeah, now's about the time.
Do you think they know?
I don't think they know. How are they going to go to the store? They don't even know what we got. They don't know that we got shirts, we got mugs, we got hoodies, we got crew necks, we got stickers, and we got greeting cards.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff.
And prints too.
Yeah, I bet they like it.
I think they would like it.
I figure if they listen to this,
they probably would want
then
some
they
of the
would
merch.
probably want what we have on our website. So
gotta head to deadscaredentertainment.com. That's deadscaredentertainment.com, because they'll forget this.
Yeah.
We can always make a commercial about it.
We should make a commercial
about it.
But
nah, this ain't gonna work.
yeah,
All right.
it's all right.
In the sake of the fact that this is Verda Darano, the Wagon of Fear, I'll tell you a quick little story that is featured on TikTok, but there's more to those TikToks, so you have to definitely check them out. So, I have a nice little Bichon Frise. He looks like a little like Shih Tzu or like a little like poodle. His name is Puddles. I didn't name him that, but that's a whole nother story. So my dog is like a few weeks, maybe a month or so old. And when we got him, he was kind of like hesitant to fall asleep. He was constantly barking. He had anxiety, a lot of separation anxiety the first few weeks that we had him. So at the time, it was during the summer, so I was able to spend the nights with him until he would like fall asleep and I'd go back to my room, or I would honestly just pass out in the living room with him in my arms. I remember he was in my arms and basically asleep. So I was more or less just kind of trying to find the moment when I could either just like scooch him over so at least I can lay down comfortably, or potentially like walk off, go to my room and sleep in my bed as a normal human does. And I remember him getting up from his sleep, just like jumping up. And mind you, he's a puppy, so he has like a very yippy type bark, but he gets up from his sleep and looks down the hallway. Now, the way that our apartment is set up here is the whole house is set up down one particular hallway, where from the front room, you can see all the way down to the kitchen, and then rooms and a bathroom sort of like spurt off of that main hallway. Well, the dog is looking directly down the kitchen and looking towards our fridge. Now, all the way at the end of our house is a pantry, a small walk-in pantry. But in order to get into there, you sort of have to turn a makeshift corner past the fridge. So it almost like creates like this little L. Well, the dog is starting to bark. And it's not just a normal little yippy bark, like as if like he recognizes somebody. This is like there's an intruder in the house, very deep guttural bark that this dog is giving at this point. And I'm confused. I'm like, whoa, he's never barked like this before. This is the first time I ever heard this dog ever bark in this sort of like very like ominous, like very like defensive tone. So naturally I'm concerned. I want to see what he's looking at. So I go peer my head over to look down the hallway, knowing everybody else in the house is asleep. I look down the hallway and I see there is what looks to be a 6-foot tall black shadow of a man that is standing sort of like 60% on the side of the fridge, just peering out, just peeking his head and part of his body out. And then once he notices that I notice him, he goes and he like dashes as if to run into the pantry, but disappears. And this dog is still barking and barking. And mind you, this man, the way he looked was, like I said, about like 6 foot some, and looked like he was wearing like this Carhartt jacket. And I call him Farmer Jack. And to give you a little background on his story, and again, I do mention this in the TikTok, plus another story about our Farmer Jack. This is the oldest house on the block, and we also have a coach house that is behind us as well. And the coach house was where he used to live. The main floor of that coach house was originally stables where he used to keep the livestock. And above that was a small apartment that he used to live in so he could keep an eye on the animals. My grandfather, my papu, used to tease my sister and I, saying that the old man one day was milking the cows in the barn, in the stables, and the cow kicked this pitchfork, and the pitchfork flew into the guy's face right through his eye, killing him. And now this ghost of this farmer, who he called Farmer Jack, now haunts the property with its eye dangling out of its socket with a pitchfork. Now, I have not seen Farmer Jack sporting a pitchfork at all, or a dangling eye, but he always appears as this black shadow figure. And I'm not the only one who's seen him. Everyone in this house has seen him. And people who have not even visited this house have seen him in the background, appearing and just making his presence known. If you want to hear more about Farmer Jack, check out our TikToks so you can hear these ghost stories, as well as the ghost story about the girl that lived in my basement. So that's the spooky side of things. Back to the less spooky side of stuff. We finally made it to June. Congratulations. So as for this June, Raquel and I have both been into some very interesting things this June. I'll tell you about Raquel in this case. Raquel was a part of a fashion show towards the beginning of the month of June. That was really interesting. I wasn't feeling too hot, so I was not available to go to that, even though I was invited. It was super cool. It featured like helicopters and cars, and it was just one of those things where, a total guy type of venue. But at the same time, yeah, it was a fashion show. And since then, she's basically been involved in prepping things for Chicago Fashion Week coming in October, and just kind of lining things up in that realm while I take care of the spooky side of things here as we lead closer to October, when she'll start having a little bit more of a hand in things. More on that in a bit. But as for me, still in production. We are not sure. War for Christmas is not sure. We can't give a specific dates on when things are happening. Things are just happening. It just is what it is. But I'm recording this after basically 3 major events have popped up. Let's start with the first one in succession. Basically, on the 20th of this month, Universal Studios Orlando released information, concept videos, concept art, and details about their Epic Universe's Dark Universe. Now, if you are not familiar, Universal Studios Orlando is basically kind of following in sort of the fashion of Walt Disney World, creating sort of like all these little small parks that feature different facets of the types of entertainment that studio creates. And one of these happened to be what they call the Dark Universe, which is basically their Universal Monsters, their classic Universal Monsters theme park. You're hearing me right. I get to say something that I dreamed about as a little boy. Getting to do is, going to a theme park with all of my favorite classic movie monsters there. And it blows my mind to say that I live in a time where I get to go to a theme park, where I get to see Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Mummy, creature from the Black Lagoon, the Invisible Man. It's just unbelievable. I also made a video describing all the different restaurants, the different attractions at this theme park, as well as the controversy that potentially lives within this theme park. If you want details on that, go ahead again and watch my TikTok. The video actually is also available on our YouTube. So either check out our YouTube again, look up Dead Scare Entertainment, or check out the TikTok and you will easily find that video. It's got my face on it and it says Dark Universe. But to kind of give you a general gist, one of the biggest things about that theme park is the fact that they have a section of it built around a roller coaster called The Curse of the Werewolf. For those of you who are Universal Monster fans, you probably are going to know where I'm going with this. It sort of centers around this sort of Romane camp, which they've coined the Guild of the Mystics, the Camp of the Mystics. And Maleva, their rendition of her is rather pretty, definitely not Maria Ushbenskaya whatsoever, which is kind of sad. Looks nice, but there's little to no remnants of a Romani identity to her or to this land outside of the caravans. And it's so concerning to me because the reason why I fell in love with the genre, why I fell in love with the monsters, was because it was literally the only representation of the Romane culture in mass media that existed as far as I was concerned. That was the only thing I knew of as a kid. We never got positive Roma heroes. Yeah, there was Esmeralda, but even then there's some like sort of shaky ground on what Esmeralda's built on, this idea of an exotic dancer, even though she was a very strong, independent, feminine character. And even then, the simple fact is that Maleva was a feminine hero. She was the one who saved Laurie Talbot on multiple occasions. And these are things that I just question, and I hope that Universal can address in a proper way and be able to understand that, look, I'm not going to try to be here, try to be like one of those individuals that's the party pooper and is like, well, this is not culturally appropriate and this doesn't show proper representation. I'm not trying to be that individual. What I am trying to say is, hey, don't deny the narrative and don't deny the literal historical folklore that all of these classic monsters are built upon, and the individuals and the cultures that belong within the lore. Because whether we like it or not, the majority of these like classic horror like narratives, Dracula, Frankenstein, a lot of the folklore that comes from Eastern Europe or even from England too, where a lot of these novels were written, Roma were prevalent in these narratives, were prevalent in these stories. They were plot devices. They were characters that played significant roles within these classic stories. And with that, I understand it may seem problematic to include them because of their roles and because of the connection, the correlation between monsters and Roma. But that doesn't mean to say that that there aren't individuals that existed in those narratives that were villainous. There were still positive representations, even though the stories themselves were rather dark. So I just hope that Universal honors their legacy, the legacy of the monsters that they're talking about in and outside of their films, and the people and the culture that literally is embedded within the world of the horror genre. More about that world, the Universal's Dark Universe, in that video on TikTok and on YouTube. And then also what came up a couple days later was Summerween. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Summerween, it is a rather new holiday that has come about from the show Gravity Falls. So again, I'm showing my age. Even though I'm 200, I'm really not, surprisingly. And I'm not letting you check my ID. Good night. But in Gravity Falls, according to the lore, the people of Gravity Falls love Halloween so much, they celebrate it twice a year. I can back that up wholeheartedly because I don't blame them. If I could, I'd celebrate it once a month, maybe. I don't know about twice. At least once a month would be fun. it has come to the point where it is recognized, not necessarily nationally celebrated, but it's celebrated by those people who know about it. And it just so happens that that same day was a motorcycle festival here in Chicago called Motoblot. Now, I just recently discovered this, and I ran into a world-renowned artist, Mitch O'Connell, a Chicago staple in terms of the illustration and art world. According to him, he's been going to it for 20 plus years. So I'm like, oh, well, damn. I feel kind of strange. But I ran into him, super nice to kind of reconnect with him. I met him at Flashback Weekend, one of the conventions here in Chicago, horror conventions. And it was just great to see a familiar face. And if you are not familiar with Mitch O'Connell's artwork, my God, do yourself a favor and familiarize yourself with Mitch O'Connell's artwork. It is fantabulous. The spooky stuff, the sort of like X-rated stuff, the kitschy, sort of like, subversive things as well. Love it. Just go for it. Believe me, you will not be disappointed checking out Mitch O'Connell's work. But I was there to see the Messer Chops. You heard me right. They're called the Messer Chops. The way I could best describe them is goth surf music. So this band is not from America. They're actually from Russia. And they had a huge tour now here in the States this past month or so. One of their towards the end of their tour, they hit Chicago. They hit Detroit the next day, which it would have been great to even see them in Detroit. But they were a part of the Motoblot Festival that ran this whole weekend. And they were so cool. The music was great. The crowd was packed to come and see them. And rightfully so. They are a staple when it comes to the horror community, when it comes to that motorcycle vibe, that sort of like rockabilly vibe. It all just lives within that realm. And it was just so great to see how many individuals came out to hear this classic band. I also had a chance to actually talk with all the band members. They were super nice and they had some great merch. I bought a tote bag and I bought one of their newest CDs, The Dark Side of Paradise. Definitely check that out. I've been jamming to that in my car on the way to the gym on a regular basis. So that just about wraps up what I have to tell you guys about what I've been up to these days. Where are things headed in the future? Well, I'll let you know. First and foremost, Raquel and I are planning some big things, not only for the summer, for the remainder of the summer, but also for Halloween. Obviously, because of me being in production at this level, it has been very difficult for me to really give too much time to Dead Scare Entertainment. But do not fret. That does not mean that I do not love you, I do not care for you, and you do not hunt my nightmares. I still care and I still want to be involved as much in your lives, in your blood, as I possibly can be. One thing that I want to let you guys know is that you'll be seeing more of Vic, the vampire bat, and the Bat Pack. Yes, I said the Bat Pack. Very soon coming to you and your screens. You've gotten some glimpses of him on some illustrations on our socials, but soon we're going to get some real life into those characters. Sooner than you think. Speaking of characters, also, we're going to be diving more into some stories with the 6 Feet Undergrads. If you are not familiar with Desmond's Half-Baked Birthday, the animatic that is on our socials as well, go ahead and check that out. So when we start coming up with stories with the 6 Feet Undergrads, you're familiar with them and you can start naming who your favorite characters are once the content's out there. Also, we are going to be releasing some new prints. In particular, I'll give you a hint on who the next print is. It is the Gill Man, the creature from the Black Lagoon. It's a print that I've been sitting on for quite some time, and I realize now is no better time than ever to just gift you creepy kooks with this piece of artwork that I have cherished for a while and has been collecting dust in the Amazon, and now soon will be available to be yours in the version of a print. Another thing that Raquel and I are really working on as well is the idea of creating a Roma Fest of sorts, just one day, a one-day Roma Fest. Probably will be taking place under Chicago Voste in Chicago, but there's a good possibility. I would love the potential of this taking place under Detroitate in Detroit. Where it may be, when it may be, we will let you know. But it will be a Roma Fest featuring music, the food, culture that you know and love, but also having that nice little spooky twist that makes Dead Scare Entertainment what it is. And one thing that I'd like to close on as well is the idea of the fact that we are posting this in the wee small hours of June is the fact that this is Gypsy Roma Traveler History Month. If you have not spent some time looking back at the history of the Roma people, looking at the excellence of the Romana people, do yourself a favor and look back. Go ahead and do some research. We have politicians, we have scientists, we have boxers, we have famous, beautiful, wonderful authors, artists, obviously singers and dancers. We have athletes. We have more musicians than you can imagine within the history of our people. And the Romana people forget to look back at where they've come from and realize the amount of power they have to change the world. Because whether we like to believe it or not, we have contributed some major things to the world, especially in the realms of the arts. There is no way that the world can deny our presence and our contributions. They just don't know as much as they should know about who we are, and what we've given to the rest of the globe. So thank you for spending this time with me on this episode of Verda Darano. Hopefully next episode we will have another guest, more spooky stories for you, and a great conversation for you to listen to. Obviously you could check us out on all of our socials, be it Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, or YouTube, as well as our website, deadscareentertainment.com, where you can purchase some of our merchandise, as well as the print that I mentioned. If you want that print once it's released, head to deadscareentertainment.com so you can get one of the limited edition prints once that goes online, which will be very soon. So if you are a Gillman Creature from the Black Lagoon fan, that rhymed, you better head on over there once it's ready. And as always, on Verda Darano, we love to leave you with a very special message.
Gia kormangav tuke baktalotrom, preko tunyaripe. Till then, I wish you safe travels through the darkness.
This broadcast of Verda Darano was brought to you by the talents of Pierce and Raquel Horvath, creators of Dead Scared Entertainment, with the help of Piroshka Raj. You've been listening to a production from Dead Scared Entertainment, where terror is our tradition. Good night.